Today I'm gonna read my book called Green Island. So the story it's and the company is called Oxford Reading. So let's get started. But wait. The honor is series created by Roderick Hunt and Alex Patria. Mr. Johnson took his class away for the week. They went into a big house called Sea Bay House. Mrs. May went to the children were excited. Sea Bay House. Mrs. May went to the children were excited Sea Bay House and near the sea, and there was lots of interesting things to do. Everyone unloaded the bus. Some of these bags and cases are heavy, said Mr. Johnson. We're only here for a week. Mrs. May found a toothbrush. Whose toothbrush is this? She asked. Oh dear, said Biff. I think it's mine. Mr. Johnson showed the boys their room. You'll be sleeping in here, he said. I want the top bunk, shouted Chip. No, I want the top bunk, shouted Wilf. Mr. Johnson tossed the coin, heads or tails, he said. Mr. Johnson gave the children a map. Then he took the children for a long walk. After a while, they stopped at a rest. The children looked at their maps. Mr. Johnson showed them the place they could see your map upside down, Biff, said Wilf. Nadim pointed at a little island out at sea. What's that island called? He asked. Look at your map, said Mr. Johnson. Who can tell me what the island is called? Chip and Amina knew. It's called Green Island, they said. Oil is terrible stuff, said Mrs. Honey. You can see what it does to animals and birds if it spills into the sea. It's terrible, Mrs. May. I'm having trouble getting it off Chip and Mina. The children did. Mrs. Honey told them. They ran to the boat with Mrs. May and climbed in. I hope the boat will start, said Mrs. May. If it doesn't, I don't know what we shall do. Do you think those people are dangerous? Asked Chip. Wilf and Chip pushed the boat without the oar. How do you say that?
Oars.
Oars. And Mrs. May started to engine. So far, so good, said Mrs. May. Let's hope Mrs. Honey idea works. I hope Mrs. Honey and Mr. Johnson will be all right, said Wolf. Mrs. Honey's idea worked. Mr. Johnson had taken the other boat. People couldn't get off the island without it. Hooray, shouted the children. They won't get off Green Island unless they swim all the way back. That are you doing? Our boat, shouted a man. Bring it back. I'll get the police to bring it back, shouted Mrs. Honey. You can tell them why you've dumped toxic waste on Greenland, brrr, said the man. Oh, I didn't see that. The police took the people off the island. Taking their boat was a brilliant idea, said Mr. Johnson. I'm glad we caught them, said Mrs. Honey. And I'm glad you were with me. I couldn't have taken their boat by myself. What an adventure, said Mrs. May. Look at those drums of toxic waste, said we. Where they could do some harm. I'm glad the others be safe on island. Now, said Amina.
One by one.
Oh,
What page you are now?
wait.
You check the number.
Oh, this one page. And this page. At the end of the week, there was a party. Mrs. May played their guitar and everyone sang songs. Mrs. Honey came, she told the children stories about the children animal. She had looked, but you have been the best story to tell, said isn't every school trip that become famous. Photographer came. She made everyone in a group. Then she took a photograph. We are going to be famous. I've been never famous before, said Chip. I wonder what it feels like.
Last page.
No. Where? The next day, the story of Green Island was in newspaper. The children were excited. I'm going to buy a newspaper, said Chip. One for me, one for Mom, one for Dad, and one for Gran. Now I'm famous. I don't feel any different, said Wilf.
How many minutes? 9.